Hello, welcome to this video in which I'm going to explain to you what I learned from my lessons with Coach Dane. The main things I will show you some model games, some concepts he explained to me, and some recommendations for my games. So we're going to start with the dream concept, which it's really interesting. He recommended it mostly for tactical positions, tactical exercises, and you can use it for a normal position as well, but it won't be that winning usually in a normal position. So I will use this example, this tactical exercise to show you what's the dream. So we have to look at the exercise, realize that we have bishop and knight for a pawn, and what's our dream position? What would be our main objective, the position we would like to reach. And then we have to look for a way of reaching it. So here we see that we have a bishop and a knight, and the king, it's kind of hopeless there. And our dreams would be to take the pawn and mate with the bishop and or a knight, or smothering the king and getting a mate. So whichever of those, it's completely fine to reach it. So because we know that we have to realize which would be our mate, and we look at it and we see that if the king is in a1, there's a pawn in h2, a king in c2, and a knight in b3, then it's a checkmate. So we want to reach that position. Of course, because I know the exercise, it's way easier for me to realize the dream. You can do it in a normal game as well. What would be the position you would love to reach? Or the other dream that I mentioned, that you could easily realize it without knowing it, um, would be to just get rid of the pawn. So the huge idea would be to start smothering the king and getting them to run out of moves. Now the only moves are a3, king a1, or king b1. If king b1, we reach the dream of getting just a knight and a bishop, and we will just play knight c3, knight takes pawn. It's winning. So, okay. And if they play king a1, it's the same idea with knight c3. Well, I'm gonna show you to make this king b1, knight c3, take the pawn. We're going to mate. If king a1, we can play a lot of things. Don't play king c2 because then there's h3 and you might be drawing this game. Play this in knight c3 and force a3, and after king d2 you're going to win the pawn easily, and after you win the pawn the game is over. So after king b2 you play knight a2 and you win. Okay, that's the easy part. So now we focus on the main move, a3, which makes us realize that now we have an option for the second dream, the smothered mate. Well, not the smothered mate exactly, but similar. Bishop h2. And now, an interesting move for black here is king a1 to survive a little bit longer. But here we just play king c1 and it's the same position. We will reach normally. Of course, if they take naturally, we'll reach that position. So after king a1, we have to again think the position we would like. We would like the knight in b3 and the pawn in h2. So we play king knight d4 because if a2, knight b3 and we win, it's mate. So they play king a2, and now we go to the path to force the dream with knight e2, and after king a1, we just play king c1, knight c1. I get confused because of the case sometimes in my mind. Now a2 and we checkmate because the knight was covering the a2 square. Okay, this is one example of the dream. We thought about the position we would like to reach, and we got a path to it. We're winning the pawn, checkmating. So now we go to another puzzle in which I will show you the dream. This is a simple, way simpler one, but I still use the dream. My dream was to get my queen to c6, forking the rook and the bishop. And I just look at the path for it. I just play it easily, and I fork, and I win the game. And I use the dream for this. It doesn't really have to be a complex position to use the dream. You just have to know the concept, use it what, and use it when it's needed. So now I will go to another position, and now it's not a dream, it's another concept I'm going to show you in this game. It's quite an easy one, but I think you will like it. Here, they show me a game again Susan Polgar against Smith. Really interesting game. We didn't really look the opening, we just passed around it. It's interesting, but he didn't really show this to me. A really good thing that Dane does is that he starts the lesson usually asking you, what do you really want to learn about? And then he goes in a position and asks you, what would be your thought process in a specific position? Which it's really good. So okay, we pass this, and sorry, and here again, on rook a2, because you have already seen it. But Dane asked me what would be my moves and thought process. Of course, when I started explaining my thought process, my first idea was taking on e6. But then I calculated it and I didn't like it that much. Because of course it's winning, looks winning, but it's not that clear. It feels completely winning. There's king h7 and it's still some play. So and then I started thinking about another idea, an interesting idea. Queen takes rook, which I found after knight takes queen, got this check, and then a really interesting move with rook h8. A thing that Dane liked is that in the first lesson we had, he told me that I always have to have two candidate moves so I can compare those moves and extrapolate ideas from both of the moves. So that was thing I learned in the first lesson. It was interesting. These are the games of the second lesson. And here, after queen takes rook, we have this line in which we just take the queen, and we're 2 pawns up, but still a game to be converted. Playing against Smyslov, an endgame, even a winning one, it's always tough. And here we will look at the concept. Should that was key squares. Pawn takes 9. Here you will think for a second that this might be a draw. Like, this looks terrifying for what? For a second, if you don't think about it, that it could be a draw. Because if you play king f4, it's a draw. Like, it's funny. It kind of completely looks like a draw. Well, it doesn't look like it's a draw if you play king f4. But Susan Polgar didn't blunder like that. Sorry, it was big storm. I meant here. If you played king f4, then it was an easy draw. So Susan played king e3. Now Smith can blunder with king e6. He played king e7, king d3, king d7, king c4, king c6, and now after king d4, Smyslov resigned. And a concept that Dane explained to me was the key squares. If in this case it looks tough to see, I will show you another example. But if you can enter in these three squares, it's winning. If you have the e4 pawn, if you can enter in one of these three squares, you're completely winning. If the e5 pawn wasn't there, it would be a draw because you cannot enter in those three squares without losing the position. But because you have this e5 pawn, then you can easily enter these three squares and you will win this game. Because after king d5, king d5, after king d7, wait, no, that was not the way, sorry. After king d7, well, yeah, that was the way, sorry. I'm a little bit clumsy today with how I talk. Yeah, look at this. King d7, because you're controlling these squares, you're winning. After this, this, and now there's just no move, because after this move, this is clearly a move. King d6, king d8, and now we win. We just won the game easily. So what he showed me was the concept of key squares. That's even more clear here. I'm going to show you was this position, and now, yeah, king c2. This is an example, and, and now you have to find the only move, king b1. And to find this move, you have to know about key squares. Yeah, king b1. And after a3, you would think this is easily a draw because before the king gets to the pawn, it's just a draw. But you have this really interesting move with the d3 that shows the concept key squares. Because you will be able to enter one of these three squares, you're winning. Look at this. King 6, king a2, king d6, king d3, king c6, king a4, after king b5. We gain the position and we have the capability of getting into the king square, to the key squares. After king c5, we just gain the position because we knew about the concept key squares, which was very nice. So I hope you understood this key squares concept. So we're going to the second game. He showed me really interesting as well. Going to kind of pass it because he mainly showed me one really interesting part. Now, now here, okay, here we reach a really interesting point in which he explained to me that Kasparov was a great attacking player. Of course, we all know that, but of course, he knew about 10 games, and even the greatest attacking player of all time, ruling out Magnus, of course, played simplification moves like bishop takes f6. That, and he told me that in my time, I have to calculate, but in my opponent's time, this was a saying by Botvinnik that in your opponent's time, you have to think about concepts, about positional things, about how are your pieces. If you could trade all the pieces and get into a king's endgame, what would be the position for you? It would be favorable for you. It would be good. So he explained that to me. It's the saying of Botvinnik, he actually told me two times, the first lesson and the second one. In this case, you have to think if we traded all the pieces in your opponent's turn, you have to think about this type of things, concepts, positional stuff, and then in your time you calculate. So that was about Botvinnik saying, explained it to me, and I quite liked it. I'm now implementing it to my games, and with I could say moderate success. So I think my thought process has improved by that. So here now you see why I said that. Why you have to think if trading all of the pieces would be good for your endgame. So now you see that yeah, it would be good because g5 and the game is absolutely over. Takes what is just promoting a black design. So really interesting thing about Binnick saying think about positional concepts in your opponent's turn and calculate in yours because you cannot really think about all about your opponent's possibilities in their time, but you can realize positional strengths, positional weaknesses, and that will be really good. So that's what I mostly learned, that I have to be always thinking about this type of things. Like I would be good in a good situation after trading all the pieces in a king's endgame. In this case, it was clear that Kasparov was completely winning after trading all the pieces. Similar, not really similar, but quite similar to the Dane's position. I told him this that actually it was after trading you could the rook is trapped. The only chance was just to take or well or play a move like king c7 and but and c5, so it doesn't make sense. So okay, after taking king c5 and the game was absolutely over. So okay, now we go to the last lesson. Oh, the last game, and actually this game was perfect to respond to my question about how to play in cramped positions, in closed positions. He actually was really happy to have this game for me to explain to respond to this question because it's a masterclass in how to play in close positions. Mostly his first advice was to always look for pawn breaks, and then he showed me this game in which it combines more more ideas to playing close positions. So we have a Sicilian, this line, really theoretical line. I do not understand this actually. I don't know if it was like a mistake in passing the moves. I don't know. So okay. Check one. Okay, now let's not understand. We didn't really look much at the opening. We'll start looking at the position after this position. Yeah, exactly here. Yeah, here. Perfect. Which it's quite a close position, no? There's not open lines, there are not op- like easy attacks. Like, yeah, you can get a knight in f5, but just g6, knight d5 just takes. It's still close position. So a4, gaining space. a5, gaining even more space. Really interesting move, locking up the structure. There's trading, queen d7, c4, and here we see this pawn break. That, of course, he told me that his first intuition was, Dane told me that his first intuition was to play rook b1 to prepare before. But this top player instantly says that b4 is a great move, doesn't need support, and will get a great bishop. Now, black doesn't want to take. Now, white supports the b4 pawn, turn knight f8, queen d1. And white is going to do a lot of little improvements. Really interesting. The rook d8, queen b3, rook d7. Black is kind of just shuffling, but it's trying to avoid, for example, this pawn takes c5, queen takes b7 capture. So moves have a purpose, but kind of looks like just shuffling. The knight 6, rook b1, rook queen c8, queen a4, rook e7, trying to avoid again c5, b5, again another gaining space. Then you will see that what does a really interesting thing again, using that when they have a space, they switch lines. You will see it. Therefore, like you see, they have attacked one line, they have gained the space in the line, and then they just switch sides instantly with f4. And then f5, g5, and then see at the maneuvers of the queen, because black is so cramped, it's already really difficult. White can just maneuver really nicely. Now queen e8. We saw some possibilities. Of course, I'm just going to show you that this game is just pure pure masterclass. Knight a8, h4. Again, pawn breaks. Like they have already gained the space in the queen side. Now they want to gain the space in the king side. It's really impressive. The h4, h6. Black is never giving white what he wants. Of course, white wants black to take because then they open up the position and they're better. But at the same time, black never accepting these pawn breaks made him really cramped. Like the position was closed for both sides at the start. Now it's cramped for black. It's still closed, but it's cramped for only black. Look at the knight. Now, I think you could think about is that, yeah, the black knight is really bad, but the bishop is really bad as well. Yeah, but the bishop can get better. G4, rook h7. Again, as I told you, so it's so many queen moves, so many queen maneuvers. Queen d8, rook h h2. Again, as I told you, they when they gain the space in one line, they had the space advantage. They just switch. They just use that they're better in one side. They switch to the other, and they are better again. It's a cool thing. And here there is just White is just again doing little improvement. King f8, a good move. Everything is covered. Queen d8. And now rook h2 to get queen d1 and queen h1. You're saying takes. And now white, seeing that the knight is so bad, just went into an endgame. And again, showing off pawn breaks. In close positions, you have to maneuver a lot. Do not be really worried. Go for pawn breaks. Even if they are not crazy, go for pawn breaks. They, they look crazy. If you think it can work, the majority of the times pawn breaks are really strong. If you calculated them and you think you open up the position in a good way, the majority of the times they are good. Look at this brilliant d4. She takes d4, and now the bishop is a strong piece again. As I told you, the bishop could improve. That was the whole point. If black had taken with d pawn, just bishop g1, and the bishop was strong again. So that was the whole idea of Sahar and Fimenko, that traded pieces after playing with such maneuvers, such an attack, such in a close position, just completely closed, got black completely claustrophobic. He just went into an endgame and used that. The bishop a3, black just resigned, which I thought about with Dane as well. And I told him that here, why would you resign here? Yeah, okay, you're losing. But why? There's still some play. There's still some moves to be played here. Actually, not some moves, a lot of moves. I talked with him about it, and he told me that usually, if past generation has this mindset about resigning, about if they see they are losing, just resigning, not playing on. And and I told him that I think it's not a great idea, and he told me he agrees. Like, just why would you resign here? There's king of seven, you still can play. You're losing. Why we're resigning? Yeah, this bishop takes d6, c5, c6. It's obviously coming, but resigning so quickly, I don't know. Still surprising. So okay, that was the main things I learned. Of course, we commented more moves. I think I improved my thought process as well. But this is mostly what we looked at, and it was really interesting. So I hope you have learned about this. I wanted to make the videos shorter than usual. I usually make my videos of 1 hour, and I think that's just not realistic to expect people to see to the end. So wanted to make it shorter. So thank you for seeing. Please subscribe. Bye.